Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 7th and 8th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish. They're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many independent comic book makers. Head on over to Kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Gilbert, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Silverline Silver Sunday. This Sunday, September the 29th. This will be our last Sunday in September. I am your host. I am Roland Mann, and I'm excited about tonight. I am joined, as usual, by always looking for a Silverline, Mr. Tom Mason.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. I seem to be the only other regular here today.
You are. And, I told them Roberta may or may not come. I don't know. But, Tommy, we always say if he's not here, we're going to talk about him. So we'll find something to say about Tommy because he's not here. So Tommy and Mike both had business they had to attend to. Roberta, we're going to assume she may pop up just a little bit later. Maybe we'll see some more colors from Roberta. But we are joined tonight by our special guest, Mr. Onrie Kompan. Hey, Onrie,
what's
how
up,
are you?
everybody? I'm very good. My dog decided to come and say he's blocked off by my name right now.
We welcome critters of all types here.
Yeah.
Clearly, we allowed Tommy to join us. So
Tommy's more than a critter. He's definitely more than a critter. This dude is the man.
Yeah. So before we get too deep here, I want to remind folks, let me pop it up on the screen. I want to remind folks that we've got a campaign going here for Teen Beetle. This is the issue number 3. This is the final issue. So you see that we still got a ways to go. We got 41%. We got 23 days to go. We've been cooking up some ideas for stretch goals. So we got to get there first. So y'all jump over to silverlinecomicscrowdfunder.com and back Teen Beetle number 3. If you can't back it, you can always share it. And that's what we hope you will do. Already getting some comments coming in here. Dan Price says, "Evening, y'all. What's up, Dan?
What's
Thank
up,
you for
Dan?
swinging by." Dan, if you've got we're gonna ask all the questions. So if you've got some, we want you to pop in and ask us some. Pop says, "What's up, Pops?" He says, "You would like to bring your show or become a sponsor of the Madness Network Group LLC? Please contact us at Madness Comic on X. Look for Pops. He'll talk to you. If you like getting on and talking about comics, Pops will get you set up." He says, "Hey, yo." Captain Tuttle says, "Good evening, everyone. What is up, Captain Tuttle?" Then he says, "Onrie Kompan is the man." Well, we're going to talk to the man tonight. But before we dig into all your secrets, right? One of the things, Onrie, I reached out to you about was I've seen you posting on Facebook pretty regular about, hey, I can't remember, like pound. I think you posted weight. Like there was 600 pounds of comics and I sold them all, and all your pictures of your empty boxes. We're going to get there. Okay. We're going to get there and we're going to talk about that.
I can't wait.
But we want your origin story first. Tell us, what's the first comic you remember reading?
First comic I ever read in my life was Web of Spider-Man number 32.
Wow.
And if you guys don't remember that issue, that was the 4th chapter of Kraven's Last Hunt.
Oh, okay.
Covered by Mike Zeck, where Spider-Man's bursting out of the gravestone,
right,
after having been buried alive by Kraven the Hunter. And I was always a Spider-Man fan, but when I was 4 years old and I saw that cover, it just did something to me. It was amazing. And after that, I became such a fan of comics. And I've been reading my whole life. When I was a kid, I was reading a lot of Spider-Man. Honestly, Spider-Man was my thing. And then when I became a teenager, I started listening to like grunge music and reading Spawn comics.
Okay.
All right. As one does.
As one does. And then and then a couple years went by, and I kind of stopped reading comics, and I was playing more video games and stuff because there were such breakthroughs in technology with the Sony PlayStation, and
including Dinosaurs for Hire, of course.
And, Dinosaurs for Hire was on Sega Genesis. That is my childhood right there. And as I was saying before we got on the air, Tom, I honestly have imposter syndrome right now because it's so cool. And I'll tell you why, because as an independent creator, we all have this. I think we all have this dream of seeing our properties reach a level of adaptation that resonates with people. And Dinosaurs for Hire was a legit video game that was based off your comic book, and I'm aspiring to get to where you did with that. That's really amazing.
Thank you. A lot of that comes from being involved in a larger company.
Right.
Basically because it feels weird to be to be referred to as an independent creator, because I was actually within the arms of the giant hug of a big company. So
Tom's slumming when he's with Silverline.
Yes, I was. Yeah, but I'm having a good time. And so I didn't have to go out and knock on doors, and I didn't have to go, beg movie studios, "Oh, please, would you look at my poor demented comic?" It happened. And then what I found out, and I want to get into this too, because I was looking through Warlion stuff today. Yeah. What I found out is because of the tone of my comic, I had a hard time convincing people that it could be, you could sort of tone it down but not lose its supposed charm.
Which is funny, right? Because the Turtles, the original Turtles comic book was not really family friendly. It was not, it was not aimed. It was aimed at me. I was a college age kid when Turtles came out, right? And it was aimed at my demographic. And then when the cartoon came out, it was all about kids.
Right. And that's when I went in, and I think you'll find this true, Onrie, as well. When you get to the spot, when I would go into pitch meetings, people would say they saw the dinosaurs and they thought, well, we want turtles. And so why aren't they eating pizza? Why aren't they having catchphrases? Why don't they say cowabunga? Why don't they do these things? Why are they shooting people? And why are there hot women? And so they didn't understand how Turtles evolved from Turtles comics universe to the Turtles animated series universe. They couldn't see that they could do the same thing. They tried, and oh, how they tried to sort of dumb it down and make it into the Turtles.
Well, and it's possible, they never even saw. I mean, I don't know. I'm not them, but it's possible they never even saw a Turtles comic book.
No, I think they saw the sales charts and they were like, "Oh, we can make money off this." So that's where you'll find yourself, Onrie. And when we get to dig into Warland, I'm going to start asking you some harder questions.
Yeah, I look forward to that, and it's really interesting. Like everybody, so I was at Dragon Con a couple weeks ago, and I was talking with Bob Burden about this,
right?
Because he sold Mystery Men, and he gave me a really good analogy, and I forgot it, but it had something to do it was like a classic saying, how did you make this work? Like, how did this all come together? And he was like, you always got to be selling, you got to, call them up and offer them the Cadillac and, then offer them all all the ups. You got to upsell them on all the other nice stuff, the leather seats and the CD player and all the other stuff. And, it's really interesting hearing it from all of you guys. And, everybody, I guess what interests me the most is the fact that regardless of how it happened, the fact that someone took an interest on an independent creator-owned thing, even though, you guys were backed by a bigger company, that doesn't, because Bob was too. I mean, he had Dark Horse, right? But that still doesn't matter. Like, someone took a chance on something unknown, regardless of whether it was backed by a big company or not. And I think that is really, that's what I think is really interesting.
Well, the thing about the big company and getting the hug from being a part of the big company is that gets you in the door, but that doesn't get you the sale. That doesn't get you to that level.
There's still work you have to do.
Right. All that doesn't guarantee anything. That doesn't guarantee a product. That doesn't guarantee a deal. That doesn't guarantee cash. All that does is it gets you in the door, which is great because the door is the hardest thing to get into.
Yes.
But you still have to be a personable salesperson once you get in that room. You still gotta, like you were saying, you still gotta give them, these are the leather seats, this is the air conditioning, this is the power steering, these are the automatic wipers, these are the, this is where you plug in the battery. This is
I wish I had the exact phrasing he had, but it was so perfect. He just he totally nailed it. But
also as a salesperson, it's really an improv skill because they'll say, well, suppose Warlion doesn't have his magic staff. Suppose now he carries an AK-47, and you don't want to. I mean, that's horrible, but you don't want to be. You don't want to end the meeting and kill your chances by going, you
idiot.
You're going to ruin everything. And so you really just have to develop an improv skill, which is like, yes, and do go on. And so, you want to hear.
I think there's something to that, you obviously don't want to, throw away your artistic vision for everything. But I think that's the beauty of comics, at least in my opinion. Like, take the Watchmen movie, for example. A lot of people were pretty split on that movie. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but there are a lot of people who felt like it was a really poor adaptation. And then there's some people who thought it was a really good adaptation. And there's some people that thought it was better than the comic.
Right.
And there are changes that were made and all this stuff. But the changes that were made were kind of like, I mean, if you look at any comic book movie, really, it's not like they all follow the comic books to a T. No. There's all kinds of changes being made, even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, Black Widow and Hulk never had a relationship, and all these other small things never happened. But they did it for the sake of the story that they were telling. And I think at some point when you're looking to have something of yours adapted, you have to be ready to let it go. It's no longer yours. In fact, I think the same is true when you put the comic out there. The moment you put your comic out there, it no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the audience now.
Yes, and you can't. That's the thing that I learned too early on is you cannot control the reaction.
Right.
Like if they love it, that's great. If they hate it, that's great too, because that's I mean, you don't like it, obviously, but that's you did work that, and the biggest response you got was their hate, and so that's it stings like an arrow.
Even that, it's like even the hate now. The funny thing,
at least they read it.
At least they read it, but here's another thing. Sometimes hate has a lasting effect that actually is positive. I forgot there was an example. Well, for me, I always liked the Spider-Man Clone Saga. I was at the edge of my seat every week that those issues would come out. And so many people hated on it. They like absolutely despised it. But now, like all these years have gone by, and they actually asked Tom DeFalco and Jerry Conway to come back and retell the story the way they originally envisioned it, and condensed it. And then they brought back that storyline. Dan Slott did the Clone Conspiracy. So even the stuff that gets knocked around, like I know I'm using big two references here, but I think it's all subjective, and opinions can change over time. I have watched movies that I hated at first, and then I go back and I rewatch them, and I'm like, this is actually pretty brilliant.
That's not so bad. Yeah.
Well, because I don't know how Roland looks at this, and we'll get to that in a second, Roland. But for me, the Spider-Man thing is, if you're the Spider-Man editor, let's say, and you've got 36 issues of Spider-Man coming out a year, you've got 12 issues of 3 different titles, at the very least. Yeah. You're going to come up, sitting around a room with your writers and the other Spider-Man writers, and you're the Spider-Man editor, your assistant editor, and the editor-in-chief, or whatever, and you're spitballing stuff to do. It's like, clones. We haven't done clones yet, have we?
Right.
I bet we could get a couple of years out of that. And so you can just sort of see, because the idea itself isn't bad, and those are sort of fun, goofy stories. But comic fans, when they don't like something, they always think that's the end of the world. Like, you've changed this thing, you've ruined everything now. Yeah. And you're never going to go back to the Spider-Man that I love. And then it isn't that way at all.
This is not my Spider-Man.
Right. That's my favorite one. Yeah.
When heard of BDSM, now it's NMSM.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
When you get to War Lion number 334, and the fans are going like, "I've been with War Lion. What? This isn't War Lion."
That's right. Victoria says came to say hi to Bentley.
Yeah, Bentley's my dog. He's
sleeping now, right?
There he is. He's had enough.
Yeah. Dan Price says, such a great Spidey storyline talking about Craven. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I agree with you. And of course, you can't go wrong with Mike Zeck. Well, Madness says, Onrie!
Pops, what's up, brother?
Victoria says, I still hate it.
She hates the Clone Saga.
So the thing is, can we get to Craven for a second?
Sure, yeah.
Because you said the Craven thing was your first comic book.
Yeah.
It's a great story. I love it.
It's a great story. But I also see a little bit of like the good part of Craven in War Lion. Is that a fair comparison? Is that?
It's interesting because I didn't think about that book at all when I was making War Lion. But for me, War Lion has always been, I've always seen myself in the character and a very stubborn part of myself.
Right.
The whole idea of War Lion was actually something that I came up with during COVID. And I was really upset because, conventions are how I make my living. And 2020 hit that I had massive plans for going to conventions and selling lots of books and everything. I had a really spectacular, I had my best year in 2019. My business was really starting to grow and things were just going in all wonderful directions. And then COVID hits and everything just kind of like stopped. And I got really angry about that. And how like when you're in the middle of something that is dreadful and you almost think you're never going to come out of it, you just can't wait. Like, you're going to come out of it, but you're like, what if we don't? And that was kind of how I was starting to feel about the quarantine and all that stuff. So around summer, there was a convention announced in Tampa. And I got into the show and I was ready to do the show because I needed to make the money. I wanted to go and work, And unfortunately, there was a big spike in cases and they had to cancel the show. So after that point, rather than get distraught, I was like, I'm going to do the one thing I should have just done when everything started. I just started working on a brand new comic. And I started from where my emotions were in that moment, and it was real. I was very angry.
So it's basically anger management, where you poured your anger into a character,
into that character, and it turned into something a lot more cathartic for me because the story ended up becoming about the relationship between Warline and his daughter,
Right.
and passing on that legacy. So I guess in some ways you could say that's true, but I think in Craven's case, he was sort of trying to prove himself to him. I think he was trying to prove himself not just to Spider-Man, but I guess to his own self, that he was worth a damn, because he was always considered to be like the second tier villain, and he wanted to show that he could beat Spider-Man and absorb him and become him. I don't think that's Warline's motive.
No, I don't.
Yeah, but the presence and the feeling, I will definitely say that Mike Zeck's artwork has been a huge inspiration for me throughout all of my career in comics. Like his ability to tell a story on the page is just incredible.
So I'm an old enough fan that I remember when his work used to appear in fanzines, and then it was at Charlton Comics, and then when he made the move to Marvel, it's like, oh hell yes.
Yeah.
Because
I want to back up just a little bit.
All right.
Craven's Last Hunt was your entry into comics. What comic was it that you read that went, that's what I'm doing? I'm gonna make comics. This is what I'm gonna do. This is my life in front of me.
Yeah. That's a great question. Ultimate Spider-Man #2. And I would say number one. I would say number one. But unfortunately, it was all sold out. So I actually had to buy it. I had to buy it on eBay. That's how popular it was. The original run of Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah. And it wasn't on your pull list?
It was not on my pull list because I wasn't reading comics. That was the book that got me back into comics. And then I started following this guy's career. And I'm like, this guy's knocking out one hit after another. I mean, he was working on Daredevil, Ultimate Spider-Man. What else was he doing at the time?
He was doing most of Marvel for a long time.
He was.
It felt like it anyway.
It did feel like it, but I mean, he did stuff for Image, and I just saw this guy, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I just looked at that guy, and I was just so mesmerized by everything he was doing in comics. And then I just looked at all these other creators, and they were all rock stars back then, like Ed Brubaker, Grant Morrison, Mark Miller, like these guys were just coming up left and right, and they were just producing such incredible work. John Michael Cassaday, I mean, like his artwork was just absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely loved his work. What's up, Leonard?
Leonard, thanks a lot.
Oh, man.
Thanks for stopping by. As a reminder, if you guys have questions, anybody out there listening have questions for Onrie, post them. We'll get them asked. Meanwhile, if you don't, Tom and I are going to ask all the questions.
Just try and make us shut up. We will.
That's right. Grey Wolf says, "Hi, y'all. What's up, Grey Wolf? Thanks for swinging by." So, all right. So you decided at Ultimate Spider-Man, this is what I want to do. How did you make that happen? What was your first comic, and how did you make it happen?
It was a road. So, I mean, no one's first comic is their big hit, right? So, they had
or any good, really.
Or any good, yes. Yeah. And I certainly don't want to trash any of my collaborators on my first comic because I think they all did a really great job.
We're a very positive show here.
Yeah, the fault is the fault is all on me. It took me a number of years. So when I first read Ultimate Spider-Man, I was a senior in high school. So then I graduated from high school and decided to go to art school. I went to Columbia College in Chicago.
Oh, and was Len Wein teaching there by that point in time?
Not Len Wein, Len Strzezuski.
Yeah.
Right. Len Strzezuski is actually one of my mentors. Yeah, he's one of my mentors.
What?
Yeah, so
he was a Tom collaborator.
He was.
Oh, okay. So you worked with Len? Yeah, Len is one of my. Len helped me with my very first professional comic. I want to say. So,
I used to refer to him as the professor because in meetings he had a very professorial air about him. He was very erudite, and he would. A lot of us would be jumping in with ideas like boom, 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 and he'd be sitting in the back of the room like the professor, and then all of a sudden he would just say, "What about this, gentleman?" And then.
he really was. I'll get to that. So I went to Columbia College and I was working a job in finance, and I finished college, and then I didn't have any job opportunities waiting for me. I didn't do any internships with Marvel or anything like that. So I had no ins into comics. And I tried to get an internship, but I had already graduated from college, and they're like, sorry, there's just nothing there. So I was working my finance job. I was paying the bills. I was making a lot of money. But I hated my job. Like I dreaded waking up every single day, and I had to get up super early, and then I would just moonlight and do the whole comic thing. And I realized after I published my first book, it was called The Raven. It was a black and white comic. And I sold it really well. I only printed up like 200 copies. So, I doubt anybody can find it or has it. I have like one copy of it hiding somewhere.
And this would have been what year?
2005.
2005. Okay.
So I made this comic. It was not my proudest moment in comics, but I got it out there.
It is what it is. You got it out there.
You have to go through it.
And
anytime I hear someone say something like that, I go, you know what? You know how many people I've heard say, I got a comic idea?
Yeah.
But they never get it done. They never
right.
follow through. So you're heading already just having it done.
It's
right?
like 80% of the game just getting it done.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was in debt after making that comic, and so I decided, okay, this
Welcome
was
to comics.
I didn't make a good comic, but now I have time. I'm going to pay off my debt, and I'm going to make a good comic, and I'm going to take the time to actually come up with something really cool. So I had a roommate at the time, and he told me about this K-drama, which was about a Korean admiral who defended his country against the Japanese samurai in the late 1500s. And I got this DVD collection because I just thought the concept was so cool. It was like 300. And I saw this DVD series, and I was just so mesmerized and drawn into this world. And I was like, I got to do something with this. Like, I got to make a comic about this. I got to do something. And so I started kind of like trying to see what I could do. I approached Korean companies to see if they'd be interested. None of them were. So I was like, all right, I'm out of debt. I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to save up some money, and I'm going to just bootstrap my own comic, but I'm going to hire good artists. I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to figure out how to make it work. And because I graduated from Columbia, I was like, I don't want to make the same mistakes I did with my first comic. I need some guidance. I need someone who can kind of like steer me in the right direction. And one of my high school friends, she went to Columbia as well. She was the one who put me in touch with Len Straczewski. And so when I first came to Len, I met with him in July of 2007. And I remember we met up at this a corner bakery that was attached to the school, and I took him for coffee. And I showed him my proposal for the comic, and at the time I wanted to make this like a 60-issue series because I really loved Preacher and everything. Now, Len, being the professor that he was appalled by this concept. He was like, 60 issues? When's your first battle? I was thinking like issue 6, that would be like the first battle. Like the first arc would be a bullet.
No.
He was like, no, you got to do everything in the first issue. You got to just jump right in there.
This sounds so much like Len. I can't.
And the first thing he did was he told me to read Watchmen. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to read this book again. I've tried so many times reading Watchmen, and I just could not get into it. But he made me do it. And if this is the guy who's telling me, read this book, it's going to help you tighten your story, or at least give you some direction on how to tighten your story, then that's what I had to do. So I ate Watchmen, and I learned to love Watchmen. And, that's essentially what gave me the idea to really hone Yi Shin down from 60 issues down to 12. And Len gave me some really good ideas. And the second issue of Yi Shin, I remember I was brainstorming with him. I took him out to dinner after Wizard World Chicago one year. And he came up with this really cool scene for me that we used. The main villain of the story, if you read Yi Shin Warrior and Defender 2, is using Korean slaves as target practice. And it was all Len's idea to have this scene. And it was really brilliantly executed. And, he has helped so many people in comics like Mark Waid, Alex Ross, and he's collaborated with a lot of really big names and stuff like that. So
Like Tom Mason.
yes, like Tom Mason.
He was a Troll Lords guy too. Like he was an indie
Troll Lords
guy from the get-go.
Yeah.
And also
independent guy.
he created what I consider to be one of the best DC comics of the, I'm going to say late 80s, which is the Justice Society of America reboot that he did with
Mike Parobeck.
Mike Parobeck.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, that's basically one of those pocket DC titles where it's within the DC universe, but it's sort of outside of regular monthly continuity. They stand alone, and he's great at differentiating all the heroes from each other.
Yeah, and I don't think we would have had Jeff Johns and David Goyer as JSA if it wasn't for Len doing what he did in the 90s with those characters.
Yeah,
David acknowledged it.
Because that's the book that I showed Chris Allman, got him the invite into the Ultraverse. Was Chris, you should read this, and we should have Len in.
Yeah.
So he's
one of my favorites. He was fantastic. He really helped me figure out how to go about this. And I had another mentor as well, who was also at Columbia. And none of these guys were my teachers, so I came to them after I graduated. So these guys were told me to F off, but they were really, really supportive. They saw what I was trying to do, and they're not teachers to me; they're mentors. They really helped me. And Mort Castle was the second guy.
Oh yeah, I know Mort.
Yeah. Mort was phenomenal. He really came down on me about writing and making sure that my story was interesting. And him and Len both had similar things to say. So I kind of just took the best of everything that they had to say, and I kind of brought it together. But then I realized that I needed an editor that would be able to work with me on the series and really focus on it. And so I met Jim Salerkrupp on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I decided to reach out to him because I was always a Spider-Man fan. So he was editing Spider-Man comics forever. And so I reached out to him. He was very kind, very friendly. And I said, "Hey, Jim, I have this comic series I'm working on. I'm looking for an editor. Could you do this for me?" And he said, "I'm too busy," because he was running Paper Cuts at the time.
Right.
But he said, "My friend David Anthony Kraft is available. Would you like me to put you in touch with him?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" David Anthony Kraft from She-Hulk and,
Defenders
and, so many other titles, Comics Interview. So Dak and I hit it off right away. And, him and I were just working together so well. We were always shooting ideas and everything off of each other that I decided to bring him on. Easton Shin is my co-writer. And we worked really well together for about 12 years, and then unfortunately he passed away in 2021 from COVID. So Warline, kind of bringing it all back, was sort of I had to kind of take a step away from Easton Shin and get into Warline. So Warline was cathartic for me in so many ways, but it was also kind of like a trial for me to really gain the confidence to really do something on my own that's just me. And I've always because I bootstrapped my own comics, I've always just put all my energy and everything into that one title. And that's really how I've been making my money, is by going to conventions and just selling those books and using the money to continue to make more books and keep pushing and keep doing everything.
That makes you a true indie creator, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to get to that in a bit because you sell lots of copies. I think you sell more copies than anyone I have ever seen claim to sell copies. So we're going to talk about that because
Sure.
I think it's something a lot of independent creators are going to want to know, right? It's like, how are you moving
your ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, okay, so what are you doing? Let's run through some of these comments here, though. Tommy says, "Howdy, y'all. Sorry I couldn't make it tonight. Y'all have a great show." Tommy is out. He's probably at Epcot or Disney or doing something with his wife. I think it's Renee. Yeah, it's Renee's birthday, I think. So he would have been here otherwise. A couple of questions from Leonard. We're going to skip here for just a minute. Then he goes, "Seeing Alan Scott team up with Guy Gardner with the Yellow Ring and that JSA was great." Rosales Comics says, hey, what's up, Rosales? Thanks for joining us. All right, let's get to one of Leonard's comments here. He says, you got carte blanche to write any title for DC Comics. What book would you write? And I'm going to add in, and why?
Batman, because Batman.
There you go.
So I've recently been building out my personal collection again.
Yeah.
And I've been reading everything.
I thought you've been selling it all.
I've been selling and I've been buying. I'm doing
Okay.
everything. I get high on my own supply. I mean, it's just, I started reading a lot more once I started selling, because if I'm buying up all these books and I'm selling all these books, I need to know what I'm selling.
Right.
And if I can read it and be on the same level as my readers are, then that makes their experience better.
Yeah.
So I noticed that at one point Batman books were just selling like crazy. So I'm like, all right, I need to start reading more Batman. And before I knew it, this is literally just over the span of a year, I have over 200 issues of Batman in my collection.
Wow.
Various runs, and now I'm like completing runs and everything. I'm like a Batman like fanatic, and I love everything that's being done in the series. Scott Snyder's run was great. Tom King's run is fantastic. Chip Zdarsky's run is awesome. I really like James Tynan's run on Detective Comics. A lot of these guys are just, Batman is one of the most consistent ongoing titles out there, and to have a chance to work on anything with Batman would just be a dream come true. That would be really cool.
Sweet. Good answer.
And I just to bring this full circle again, because we were talking about the Spider-Man clone saga. I mean, DC does very similar things with Batman to try to squeeze 36 stories a year out of him. Or whatever and people don't get mad. I mean, they get a little mad because the costume changes, or the Batmobile changes, or Robin disappears, or whatever. But when you're doing serialized fiction, you got to mix it up.
Yeah.
And I think DC has done a great job with mixing up Batman and keeping people interested.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, I read a lot of new books that are coming out on a weekly basis, and there's some really good stuff coming out right now. Like, anybody who's like, every time I meet people who are like, oh, Marvel and DC just aren't doing it anymore. The people who say that are not reading Marvel and DC comics, just period. Because there's great stuff coming out from both companies right now. Like Alien versus Avengers was amazing. I really love it. Some people are really divided by it, but I have never been compelled to read a comic twice. And the first time I read that book, I didn't like it at all. I was really bothered by it, but something about it I kept thinking about it. And then I went back and I read it again, and I was like, I need issue 2 now. And that was it for me. And Batman is that other title that's just, I can't wait. There's a new issue coming out this week, issue 153, and Chip's bringing in the Court of the Owls. I'm here. I'm on board.
It's funny how comic book fans can be so negative about certain things when it's comics. Because I thought, when I first heard about the concept of Spider-Boy, I was like, oh no, that's terrible. What an awful idea. But again, you're trying to make Spider-Man titles, and Spider-Boy doesn't, it sounds like it would be terrible. So I picked it up, and now I love it. So
yeah, book. I really love it. And was it Angel Medina's on the interiors of that? And
really?
Writing? Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's Dan Slott doing the writing, and
it was either Humberto Ramos or Angel Medina. One of the two is doing the interiors of that, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, the character, his ties to Daredevil. I mean, like, they've been, if you're not going to allow these characters to exist, then I think you're missing the point of why these comics are being put out in the first place. And if you don't like it, don't read it. There's plenty of other stuff you can read.
That's right.
Also,
change the channel.
Yeah.
Change the channel.
I forget the number, but there's something like 600 or 800 comics coming out every month. Like, you got a choice.
You got choices. Yeah.
Look how, and this is not even everything. This is just, this doesn't include.
That's just Diamond. We were talking about how there's 2 other distributors now.
Yeah. So much stuff.
Yeah. And then don't even forget, there's also the independent market. Like, I don't work within the traditional, distribution model, because there's no, I would lose money if I was distributing through Diamond or Lunar or any of these companies. I would have to partner up with another company who would be willing to take on that role, because me personally, if I have to, if I'm selling books at wholesale, I'm losing money, and
Right.
I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The margins are really thin.
It is tough.
Yeah.
I like this question here because, well, I just like this question here. Leonard says, what are your thoughts on using public domain characters in comics?
That's a really great question. So I was actually approached by Jim Salicrup about an open domain character a long time ago, and he wanted me to just take the comic and reprint it. But I didn't want to get into that because, again, I would have to be getting into distribution, and that's just another mess, like right there, like working with retailers. And not that I have anything against retailers. I work very closely with all retailers that I shop with and everything. And I buy from shops all across the country and everything. So I have nothing but respect for comic book shops. But when you're pushing an independent comic book to comic shops, their plight is very different. Like they have to, you want them to they want to stock your book. I don't think there's any comic book shop out there that wants to tell a comic book creator, no, get the hell out of my shop.
Yeah.
They need to, but they have bills to pay at the end of the month.
They've got to be able to move them.
Yeah. And here's the thing. They don't have to work hard to sell Batman or Spider-Man. They're going to have to do a little bit more work to sell Warline or Easton Chin because I'm not a no name.
Right.
And I get that. So I'm fortunate in the sense that I found another way to operate and survive, but that took a lot of experimenting and a lot of time and a lot of everything. But bringing it all back, I think that I definitely want to do something with this open domain character. And my idea was to update the character and do something cool with it. Yeah. So the character, I guess I could just say it because it is open domain, so anyone can do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's a character that was created by Gary Frederick, who created Ghost Rider. Before Gary created Ghost Rider, he created Hell Rider.
Right, for Skywald.
So I actually picked up the first 2 issues of Hell Rider, the only 2 issues of Hell Rider, which were illustrated by Ross Andrew, who's apparently a big motorcycle fanatic. And it's all black and white artwork. It's awesome. It's a gorgeous looking book. And I was kind of thinking about how about taking this character and updating it and doing something for the here and now. So I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to do it. But if I ever get around to it and I can do it legally and without any problems, then sure.
Yeah.
But that would be fun. And I think don't we have like 8 more years before like Superman and Batman are like technically considered open domain?
Unless, of course, they change the laws again.
Yeah. And also,
this
this
would be about the 3rd time, I think.
The thing about the public domain stuff is that, like in the case of Hell Rider, that could be fairly clear because Gary Friedrich has passed away. Skywald doesn't exist anymore. They never copyrighted the material and so on and so on. DC and Marvel are tougher because DC is owned by Warner Brothers and Marvel is owned by Disney. And it's just, as somebody who's gone up against Disney lawyers before, you just really don't want to poke them.
Yeah. And it's different too because, Malibu did the Protectors. And that was all, Golden Age. Those were all Golden Age characters that were retooled and revamped. None of those people were around anymore.
Right. Well,
so it was easy.
And they were clearly public domain.
Yes.
And also, we weren't reprinting it. And the great thing about the public domain stuff is when you do update it and when you do change the story and when you do change certain elements of it, it then becomes yours.
Yes.
It's no longer the original base material is still public domain, but your version of that material is yours.
Yes.
And that's why I was kind of thinking, like, if I was going to do something, why stir the pot and create a version of Hell Rider that already exists?
That's my Miss Fury.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but Miss Fury from the 1940s, it's not mine.
Also, the thing about Hell Rider is, aside from the name, which is awesome.
The name is awesome.
What of the original material does anybody care about? Which is, I think,
there's actually pretty cool. There's some pretty cool stuff you can do with it because he was in the Vietnam War. He was a Vietnam vet, and they did experiments on him. And that's how he got his superpowers. But his superpowers didn't work the way that, Captain America's did, where he always had superpowers. sometimes those powers would go away, like completely. Like he would be in the middle of a fight and he would just lose his powers.
Yeah.
So I thought that there was something there, but you saw a lot of what was going into Ghost Rider formulated through this character. So I think it would require being in a room with someone like Len Straczewski, who would just kind of sit back and say, well, what if you did this? And, I think there's plenty that can be done. I mean, there's definitely a way to do something. And it wasn't just him too. There were other characters. There's another character named another superhero named the Butterfly. She had nothing to do with motorcycles. She actually was a singer who would dress up in this butterfly outfit, and she could fly. It was kind of like a jetpack. And she had like suction cup fingers, like the Beetle. And so yeah, I mean, there was it was a pretty silly book.
I googled it. Gary wanted to date.
Yeah.
I will confess, I'd never heard of Hellrider, and I just googled it. It never. And this cover image that comes up with this motorcycle shooting flame out is great.
Pop it up. Let's take a look.
Yeah. Let's see here.
What's up, Alfred? How you doing, dude?
Open image. Oh man, that's a tiny image.
Oh no! Come on, Roland. Use your Google skills.
Well, here we go. That's not a very good image, but all right. Share screen. And there you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I confess, never had heard of it.
And this
obviously
book,
I know Gary.
We were talking about this before we got on the air, right? How certain books are like just so expensive now.
Yeah.
This is a book that's like, if you want a first printing of this book, it's $100. Like I paid.
Really?
Yeah, I paid $100 for my copy. So like for me to get both of them was like $150. And
wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's very expensive.
I think there's something there, because the thing I think about it is that nobody, I know there are reasons for it, but nobody has done a really great motorcycle based comic in years.
I agree. There's so much potential there. No one has done a good motorcycle book, and yeah, there is just a lot of potential there. And there's a lot of potential with the character too. I mean, like I had some ideas. I haven't had a chance to work on it because, again, like my whole feeling about the way I've gone about doing business is don't get ahead of yourself. Like in order to survive doing this, you really have to focus on that one thing at a time in order to really be successful. I'd rather be successful at one thing than fail at 5 things. And I learned this lesson early on because when I published my first book, I also published other creators' works. And when those books didn't succeed as a result of my, inability to distribute their books for them, I got overwhelmed, and I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to distribute it and publish other people's stuff. Like, I just don't want it. It's too much responsibility, and everything falls on me. I don't want to get the money and then have to rob Peter to pay Paul. I don't want to do all that stuff. Like, I'd rather just stay in my lane. That way I'm honest with the people I work with, and, I'll find a way to get my stuff out there. So hopefully I'll have a chance. That'll be a lot of fun. And if not Hellrider, then, something else.
Yeah. So there's lots of public domain.
Yeah.
So as an independent and as you're financing your own stuff, how are you finding your artists? Because the Warlion art is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I got very lucky with that. So Warlion.
Are you good if I scroll through some of the PDF that you sent me?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
Why not?
Well, I don't want to just show all the interiors without asking you.
No, absolutely.
Well, there's some interiors you might not be able to show.
Well, that's true.
Just don't go past page 30. You should be
okay.
Yeah. If you're worried about that kind of stuff. But I found Dexter. I discovered Dexter Wee a long time ago, in 2013, and it was around the time that I was looking for an artist to replace our ongoing artist for Easton Shin, because he had made the leap to Dynamite.
Right.
But I guess things didn't work out with Dexter at the time, and so years passed, and I got reacquainted with Dexter's work through a book that came out from my friend Sean McCardle. It was called The Fuhrer and the Tramp. It's a fantastic book. It's like Charlie Chaplin fighting Nazis, fighting Hitler. And I saw Dexter's artwork, and it was just so dynamic and fluid and wonderful. And I was like, that is the guy. So I reached out to Sean and I said, hey, Sean, I'm looking for an artist. Can I approach Dexter? And he was more than kind. He told me, sure, please reach out to him if you'd like to. He's looking for work. And Dexter and I, we have such a wonderful relationship, a great working relationship. With Yisun Chin, I've always been very hands-on with the layouts too, and it could get kind of tiresome to have to do all that work. But with Dexter, I've been feeling a lot more confident because I can let go of that, and he just delivers these really great layouts for me, and he's got a really strong sense of composition and everything, and really just a delight.
And you have your degree in art, right? And then what you said you studied
I
art?
have a degree in fiction writing. So everything I learned about doing layouts, I actually learned from working with Dak, because Dak was about, looking at spreads and paying attention to, how the story is told and looking for more dynamic ways to tell the story, and in terms of writing also to find ways to surprise yourself as the writer. So if you can surprise yourself, then you're definitely going to surprise the reader too. But, with Warline 1, I think, and I think this is the challenge with any issue 1, you have to establish everything. So issue 1s are always hard.
Boy, would you mind repeating that?
Yeah, issue 1s are always hard.
No, the one just before that.
Oh, what was
you have to establish everything.
You have to establish everything. Yeah,
man. We've and listen, we've got a lot of love for indie comics on this show, and that's the way it's always going to be, right? But and we've talked about this some. One of my single biggest issues for so many indie comics, so many independent comics, is they don't establish anything. They just throw you right in there, and I have no idea who these people are. I don't know where they are, and I don't know what their names are. I don't know, or is this in outer space? I don't know where these things are, and they fail to establish, and that's one of I think one of the single biggest problems.
Yeah, it goes back to what Onrie was saying earlier about his 60-issue opus.
Right? Yeah.
At least I would have established some stuff. All right.
Yeah, you
I have no doubt, my friend. I have no
doubt. Something would have been established by this point. But that
is great art.
Oh, thank you.
It is. But it's also great storytelling too. I mean, it's simple, it's clean. What I like about it, and this is I mean, absolute no disrespect. It's like a very updated version, a modern version of classic Marvel storytelling.
Yeah. I am not insulted by that at all. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. I take that as a high compliment. And I'm a very hard person to offend. But, again, with this, it's like I've had people come at this in one of two ways. Some people are like, this moves so fast, I wish it would slow down.
No,
but it's one of those things where I felt it would be better if it moved fast and then it would slow down a little bit. But, again, that's part of the challenge with an issue 1 is that you got to make it, not only do you have to establish everything, but you got to make it interesting enough for people to want to come back for issue 2.
Yeah.
And no matter how great your books are, there's always a drop off after issue 1. That's just the nature of the beast. It is such an unfortunate thing, and I challenge anybody out there who is reading a comic, don't drop a comic after issue 1. Give it at least 3 issues, then drop it. If after issue 3 it's not where you want it to be, then let it go, because they've given you 3 chances, and that's it.
If you'll give a Netflix show 3 episodes.
Yep. You gotta give them a shot.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Leonard says, Onrie has some amazing deals on his show. Highly recommend checking it out. Paige Alfred, what's up, Paige? He says, yo, Onrie. Then he says, are you ready for New York Comic Con?
I don't know.
Are you going?
I am ready. I am ready, but I'm not ready because I know what I'm going to go through with New York Comic Con, and it's just, it's like You know when you got like a big important work presentation or like something important coming up at your job? That's how I feel about New York Comic Con. It's I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting, but it's 4 days of very hard, grueling work. I'm on my feet for 10 hours a day, slinging comics. Am I ready for it? Yes, I'm as ready as I am for any show, but am I morally ready for it? I don't know. I guess we'll find out in 2 weeks.
So you're tabling?
Yes, I got a table in small press this year.
All right. Well, you'll see me. 'Cause I'll be there on Thursday.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, we have to connect. That'll be
All
great.
right. I'll be dropping by.
And of course, Tom, you got to get a picture so we can.
We got to get a picture.
Yeah. Also, I'll take pictures of all my food too.
Yeah, I don't need that. Well, that is a great segue into this next thing I wanted to talk to you about. And Onrie, if I ask you anything that you don't want to answer, just say pass, move along, next question, whatever. Not here to offend, just here to get information.
And then I'll ask it.
So I was made aware of you a few years ago from a friend of mine. And I'll leave his name out just in case he doesn't want recognition. But he's like, man, you got to look at this guy. He sells so many copies of his work. And so I can't remember where it was, what show it was, but I came along and you were standing in front of a table selling stuff. I introduced myself, said hello, nice to meet you, blah blah blah, and then moved along. But I kept watching you right from afar, and you were selling books. So one of the things that I've seen you posting on Facebook is, and forgive me if I get this wrong, but you have a picture of like all these empty boxes, and you say something like 400 pounds of comics sold. Now, you know, pounds doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's units, right? How many units are we talking about? Because I've heard some pretty big numbers coming from your way.
So 402 pounds was the haul that I brought to Tampa Comic Con, which comprised of 1,100 comics.
1,100. So you moved through 1,100 comics.
But those are Warline?
Keep in mind, that is broken up into, you know, every time I make a sale, on average, I'm selling 4 books. At max, I'm selling 12 per transaction, right? Because if someone buys one of everything from me, then that's probably like 12 or 13 books that I have.
Right.
If they were to buy all 10 issues of Eastern Shin, plus the 2 issues of Warline and my other book Marks, they bought all that stuff.
Right.
That's 13 books in one transaction, right? So it's not like I just took 1,100 of the same book and sold everything is clumped together. So that's putting it into perspective to show that this is possible and this is how I did it, and this is the reality of it.
And we all also want to make clear these are your books. These are not back issue Marvel and DC's. No. These are comics that you created, you made. You're there selling. You're selling that stuff. So what would you say? Because I'm sure that you've talked to a whole bunch of other creators who go, we don't sell anywhere near that number. Have you ever? I guess maybe that's my question. Have you met anyone in the independent circles who? The only other person I can think of is Marat Michaels, who does all these poo things that he does. Have you ever met an independent creator who says, yes, I can sell this many books as well?
Absolutely. I met him last year, Stephen Frank.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I see what he does. He clobbers me.
Really?
You know? Oh, absolutely. You know, whatever empty boxes you've seen from my table, multiply that by like 5, and that's one of his conventions.
Wow.
So granted, he has a team helping him out. So he's got multiple people. He also has a large body of work behiund him.
Yeah. And when yours is growing.
And mine's growing, but you know, the thing about it too is it's not a competition. So
no.
And I mean that in multiple ways. And I mean that in the sense that Stefan and I are selling completely different things. Stefan's not selling single issues, he's selling graphic novels.
Right.
I'm selling single issues and graphic novels. So we're selling different books for different markets and for different things.
Yeah.
And so I never really look at it that way. The way I always look at it, if I'm competing with anyone, I'm competing with myself. So like going into New York Comic Con, Alfred asked a great question. Am I ready for New York Comic Con? You're damn right I'm ready for New York Comic Con, because last year I hit a wall at New York Comic Con, and I want to break through that wall this year. The last 2 times I did New York Comic Con, I did very well, but I want to do better at that show. I want to reach a new level. And the only way I'm going to do that is if I compete with myself based on how I performed the year prior. Right. So my goal this year is to do better than I have at any other year that I've done New York Comic Con. If I hit that goal, great. If I don't, then at least I tried, you know. Right. And I think that's the main objective is to do that. And I think it's very possible. I think I have a very good strategy of how I'm going to do that. I'm much more organized now, and I feel I was going through a lot of personal stuff last year. The year before that I did New York Comic Con was after COVID, so when everybody was wearing masks, and I think that affected people's ability to. I don't think there was as many people on the floor. There definitely weren't as many buyers.
Expect your ability to communicate.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
Communication is like really like 90% of what I do.
So if you had to boil this down to like 2 things, what are the 2 things that you try the hardest when it comes to selling your books? Is it your personality? Is it your salesmanship? Is it your ability to rope in people to stop by your desk? Are you making eye contact? What's your gift? What's your strategy?
Well, I think personality is everything. You know, I think that's the main thing. And the second thing is give people an offer they can't refuse. You know, give them a deal that actually makes sense. Like with Eastern Shin, I offer 4 comics for $10. I'm going to sign them all for you. And that's just $10. I'm not asking for the world here. So you're either going to say, yes, I'll try it out for $10 and that's it. With Warline, I always do a half off deal. If you're at a convention, we put a $10 price tag on Warline. I'll knock it down to $5 if you buy all of Eastern Shin. So now I got someone to jump on for Warline at half off. Yeah. People like deals, and as long as I'm not losing money on those books, which I never am, because there's the idea of selling your books, and then there's the idea of literally giving them away. Yeah. And if you're doing that, you're not making money, and you have to make money on what you're doing. So it has to make sense economically for you, and I can do that with Warline because I'm printing up. I'm usually doing offset prints with these books, so I'm printing up 5,000 units at a time, and I'm printing them.
Where do you store those things?
Well, I have a warehouse space, but I have a pretty big house, so I can store it here too. And I mean, it's for me, it's not so bad. And honestly, 5,000 single issue comics is not such a big deal. There's a lot of ways to bring it down to to make it work. So I've been very fortunate in that regard so far. And I just focus on, moving what I can at a show. So I'm not going to come to a show and I want to bring enough inventory so that it'll last me an adequate amount of time for the entire show. If I sell out on Friday, I've lost money, right? For me to do, let's look at New York Comic Con. New York Comic Con is going to cost me about $2,500 to do. So I have to make $2,500 just to break even at that show.
Yeah.
And that's going to take me, that's a lot of comic books. So that's going to take me at least a day to hit the black. I have to hit the black on issue or on day 1 so that I have 3 days of making a profit. Now, probably don't have to by the end of day 1. But definitely by the middle of day 2, I got to be in the black already. And I have to break down my inventory based on how much I think I can sell, and that'll be profitable. So I know I'm going to make money at this show. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think I was going to do that. But now I want to try and make a little bit more because I got bills to pay. And, running this business, I'm, faced with constant challenges, like what every other publisher faces. Like I've got shipping bills I got to pay for the last year of conventions because the company just sent me an invoice for the whole year, which is like $5,000. So I have to be able to pay that off from doing New York Comic Con. But you just kind of keep things moving, because this isn't my only show. I'm not riding on just New York Comic Con. I'm going to be doing multiple shows, but I don't think about these things because you can't. If you get bogged down by those numbers, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So I just focus on one thing at a time.
Well, and like I say, I ask these questions not because I don't want to, think of it as a competition, but you're an independent guy. There are a lot of independent guys out there who you come back and say, well, I sold 10 books this weekend, and you can't. That's a rough weekend.
10 more books. That's 10 more books than you sold before.
I agree with that. I don't disagree with that. But when they look at someone else, that's like, hey man, I sold 100 books this at this show. You sold 10. The question is always, how can I sell more? So what would you tell those people? What advice would you give to other creators out there? Like, man, Onrie is selling 400 pounds worth of comic books. I took 50 pounds worth of comic books and I'm coming back with 40, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell them? Right. What is, as Tom was saying, what are your strategies?
So we go back to personality, right? There's a saying from Jerry Maguire that Dickie Fox says, if you can't love everybody, you can't sell anybody. And the thing is that these are the people we see at these conventions, they're here for us.
Yeah.
They're not here for us, but they're here for us. They're walking by, and this is your chance to engage with them and give them an experience. Make it a good one. Engage with these people. Talk to them. Make them feel welcome. Be the person that you want to be. You want someone else to be for you. Like Stan Lee was my biggest inspiration in comics. And Stan was a man of the people. He was always very much about engaging with his audience and making them feel like they were part of something special. You really got to be able to do that for people. You got to get them excited about what you're doing, and you got to be excited about the work. So I think the biggest thing is, having the ability to put everything about yourself aside and make it about your engagement with the people and make it about the work. Focus on the work. Get as many of those books into their hands as possible. And if someone rejects you, move on to the next one. There's thousands of people on this floor.
Yeah.
You're gonna get. I'll tell you right now, for as many books I sell, I can guarantee you that I have 10 times the amount of rejection than I do in sales.
Yeah.
Because
you can't take it personally.
No, you can't. Now, if I remember correctly, too, you most of the times you're standing in the front of your table, right? Not behind your table.
Yeah, it really depends on the shows now. Like if I'm in an artist alley and I'm in an inline, then I'm behind my table because I think that sometimes it can kind of be a little bit, you don't want to like piss off your neighbors.
Right.
But if it's an open area or if I'm on a corner, which lately I've been investing more into getting more premiere space so that I can be in front. The reason why I'm in front of my booth is not to take anything away from my neighbors. I want everybody to be successful. The whole point of me being in the front of the table is it's part of customer service. When you go to buy a car or you go to, anyone is selling you something, you have someone standing in front of you, showing you everything, putting books in your hands, ready to shake your hand when the transaction's done, walking you through everything. So that's all it's about. And I never pitch anyone. What Tom was mentioning earlier about eye contact. Eye contact is the first thing I look for. The moment our eyes meet, that's when I pitch you. I might be standing in front of my booth with a bookmark trying to get you to stop at the table. And the way I do that is by offering people free bookmarks. Hey, can I tell you about your comic? Here's a free bookmark. I hold the comics in my hands. And they're either going to stop or they're going to keep walking. At New York, you're going to get a lot of people who are just going to walk by because New Yorkers are used to being solicited to.
That's right.
New Yorkers, Chicagoans, any big city people, they're used to being solicited to. So, they kind of drown out your voice and things like that. But there are still people who are going to make an effort to come to you because they're genuinely interested in what you're doing. Yeah. And however it is, you could be on top of your table, behind your table, underneath your table. However you do it, as long as you can bring people in an inviting and warm way, I think that's the key to that's the start of it. The second part is, do you have good prices on your stuff? Like you have to keep in mind these people come here with very limited budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So can you find something? Can you sell them something that's going to be affordable for them and profitable for you? That's a very hard thing to do, and it took me years. This was not an overnight thing. This took me years to figure out where's that margin, where am I going to be able to make money, and how am I going to be able to satisfy, my customer and myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Also-
that was sorry, Tom, I keep cutting you off. That was something I actually learned once I got into dealing. One of my LCS, who I do a lot of my purchasing from, he said, you always want to leave enough meat on the bone for the dealer, the collector, and you as the seller. So that's that trickle down idea that's how comic book stores operate.
Yeah. Tom,
So-
you were saying?
Yeah, so I think the key, I mean, this is a lot like the way Bloomingdale sets up their perfume ladies when you walk in the store. They're standing in front of the store, they've got their sample of perfume, and they ask if they can spray you, and then you stop, and then your girlfriend or whatever smells it, and then it's like, oh, I got to get some of that. It's a very simple sales tool that a lot of independent sellers aren't doing. And I think from what Onrie is saying, if you pop up the Warline #1 cover again, if I like you and you catch my attention and we talk for a second about the book and I see that,
Yeah.
I want that. And
Yeah.
I may not want it yet, but I kind of want it, and I want you to tell me about it, and I want you to talk me into it. I don't want you to talk me out of it because I already like it.
Yeah.
And I think
Now,
that's
and the way I do that is by taking 50% off the cover price. There
Right.
you go. Now if I were to just give it away for free, that doesn't work.
Right.
There was a creator who posted a video out there, and then another creator who said, hey, I saw him work at a con, and he was just basically giving away his comics so that he could say he sold out.
That's crazy.
I wouldn't be in business if I was doing that. And it's not even just to challenge what that guy's saying or anything like that. It's just the truth. I would not be able to do these conventions full time if I was not making money doing this. That's just the truth.
And all your comics are how many pages?
So Warline is 48 pages.
Okay,
per
yeah.
So that's why we price it at $10, is because it is a double-sized comic. And it's only 3 issues. So we just finished issue 2. We'll have issue 3 out next year, and the first run of Warline is done.
and it's all story. It's 48 pages. It's all
there's no ads. Yep, it's all story. Yes, sir. Yeah. So obviously I want people to feel excited when they leave the booth, not
Right.
man, this guy just talked my ear off and he took my money. And I'll tell you, I'm not perfect. There are times I screw up transactions. There's times I mess up, and I'm always looking on ways to improve myself. And one of the things that I've been doing recently is I meditate a lot. I meditate every day. And part of that is to slow myself down, because when you're on that floor and you have this big stack of books, again, I'm probably going to be shipping about whatever weight I had at Dragon Con. I think it was 500 pounds, 600 pounds of books. It's going to be that same weight going into New York Comic Con. And I have 4 days to sell through all this stuff. And if I don't sell it, here's what I have to do. I have to now ship it back. It's probably not going to be that big a deal, but that's a couple $100. That couple $100, I just told you guys what I have to pay off. Yeah. I need every single cent. I need everything. I need to pull everything I can off that floor.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of anxiety. So in order to combat that, I've been doing a lot of meditation in order to kind of calm myself down. And it's all guided meditation. And there's a really interesting quote that I heard from one of them, which was talking about being more methodical in the way that you approach people. And not just people, the way you approach anything in life. Sometimes when you have a really packed day and you have all these things you got to do, and you feel like you got to get it all done very fast, but then you start to make mistakes because you're doing it so fast that you're missing something. And there was a quote from the Navy SEALs that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so what I've been working on doing lately is slowing down the speed at which I talk when I pitch people at conventions, because sometimes I can be really fast and be like, hey, this is my book right here. It's about a Korean admiral that fought the Japanese in the 1500s. He was outnumbered 10-1. He beat him 23 times in a row without losing. We got a deal going on. You buy all 4 books. It's $10, and I'll sign them all for you. I have pitched it that fast before because I've been down the wire. So I can do it. I can do it. But if I do that, I'm going to overwhelm someone. And
you'll meet someone from Mississippi like me that says, "What'd you say?"
Yeah, what'd you say? Yeah. So I've been training myself to slow down, because in my mind, I'm going 90 miles an hour. Most of these people are going at 10 to 15 miles an hour. They're just there to have fun.
Yeah.
So I have to bring myself down to their level. And I would rather slow down a little bit more to make their experience better, so that when they leave the table, they're like, hey, I really enjoyed having a short conversation with this guy.
Yeah.
He gave me a good deal on his books. I'm excited to read them. And that's it. And what they think about the books, that's also out of my hands at this point. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like the moment you sell the books, they no longer belong to you. They now belong to the customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's funny, because as you're talking to one person at your booth, there's a part of your brain that is seeing other people just walk past you in the background. And it's like, come, I got to finish up this conversation quickly. I got to grab these people. I got to.
Oh, that happens all the time. And it's so frustrating. That is something that really frustrates me, because like, especially when I get someone who's just sitting there, because I just pitched them and they're just sitting there thinking about it. And I know they're not going to buy. I'm just so certain they're not going to buy it. In the meantime, there's 2 people who are looking over here, and they want to check out what I have here, but I can't approach them because I'm waiting for this guy to make his mind up.
How do you disengage?
So I found some ways to do it. The best thing that I do is, or the best tactic that has worked for me so far, is I just look at the customer and I say, you know what? Why don't you take some time and have a look at everything? I'm going to help these folks over here. If you have any questions at all, I'm right here for you.
Yeah.
Like
let them know that, hey, I'm here to work, but I'm here for you too, and I haven't forgotten about you.
Right.
And that's the challenge of being by myself. Like, I've had help at some shows. Like, I had a friend of mine come and help out. Sometimes people come and help out, but it's not a constant thing for me. And I've actually found that it's an added expense and an added layer of problems for me when I have other people come and help me. So I've gotten very good at just doing things myself, operating myself, and I'm much happier doing it that way. I don't know if it's really the right mindset for long-term growth, because like Tom, what you were saying about being involved with a bigger company, I definitely think that, if I'm just being honest, there are times I feel very secluded and alone because I'm not a part of a bigger company that could help propel me. And I often find myself looking at the grass on the other side and seeing how green and lovely it is. So it's not right. But I think we're all dealing with it.
It feels that way, but it's not. So one of the things that fascinates me is that, and this is what I love about independent creators when I'm at a show, is like if I'm at the Image booth, for example, I'm just buying books. I don't want to talk to anybody at the Image booth about the books because they're just the salespeople. Like it's not the creators. They just brought people in from the office. They're there to ring me up and make sure I don't shoplift, and that's it. But when I go to the and that's fine. They're perfectly lovely people, and it's great.
I love salespeople.
But it's a total transaction. It's like, I'm going to grab some books, I'm going to pay them, we're going to say niceties to each other, and then I'm going to leave. Yeah. But when I'm at an indie booth where it's just the one person and it's their books,
you get the adventures of Rob Haynes. You're talking to Randy Ronaldo.
That's the thing. I go every year at San Diego. I go and I buy the new Rob Haynes, and I spend 5 minutes with Randy, and we talk about the book for maybe a minute because I'm already in. Like I'm already a fan. I don't need to be pitched, but I'm also having an interaction with a guy. We're not friends necessarily. Like we don't go out to movies or out to dinner or whatever, but we see each other every year and we have an interaction. I ask about his kids, and I ask, we ask about each other's families, and we ask what cool things we're watching on Netflix or whatever. We have that interaction, and that's the part of independent comics that I love. Yeah, I'm going to read the comic because I love the comic, but I also want to talk shop for like a minute with the creative person because that connects me more to the material over time.
Yes.
that I don't get from other books.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
Understand.
another benchmark creator for me is Brian Pulido.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen Brian from before he became the rock star he is today.
Evil Learning.
And, you know, when he was, I remember I was in a convention in Albuquerque back in 2011. And he just had a small booth like the size of what I have now, and just seeing how much he has grown. He's got this headquarters, and
Yeah.
he's got these $1 million Kickstarter campaigns, and
Crazy.
and just this everything that he keeps building and building and building. That is the kind of like direction I want to go in terms of like building and growing. And I see how he was able to do that, and I feel like that's something I have to be able to do. Like I'm also, one other person I really admire a lot is Sean Hudutchko from Comics Elite. And you know, we've had conversations about growing business and everything, and Sean is really good at delegation. You know, like he served in the Marine Corps, and so he's got that sort of like he's very systemic in terms of how he goes about things. He knows how to delegate to other people and allow them to do what they do best.
Right.
I don't think I've been very good at cultivating that kind of group, because every time, even with my sales shows, it's like I've tried to hire people to do listings for me, and I kid you not, something I'm dealing with right now. I had a sale on my eBay store. We have over 1,400 items listed on our eBay store.
Good grief.
And the person who listed the book listed the wrong item. So the picture doesn't match the actual book.
Yeah.
After I shipped the book to the customer. So now I lost $5 plus shipping, because I gotta send the right book to that customer.
Right.
And that was, there's really nothing I could do about that. It's just a loss, you know. But
what I love about Pulido is that he publishes books that are totally Brian. Like if you know Brian personally, if you've met him and he shows you his books, those two connect. It's like those. He's not a publisher of any comics. He's a publisher of Brian Pulido comics that fit with his sensibility. And he lives that stuff, and he's exactly the kind of guy you would expect to create Evil Learning or Lady Death.
And he's taking his hits on the chin too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And another creator that I look to is Tom Hutchinson with Big Dog Inc. You know what Tom has managed to do over the years, and I got into live selling because of what Tom was doing. I saw how Tom was the aha moment for me, that like, hey, I can make comics and I can resell comics too. Yeah, I'm in. You know, and I can do that, you know. And when I saw him doing this, I was just so mesmerized by it. But you know, he's also got such a strong focus on his publishing arm. Like that is Tom. Tom is first and foremost Big Dog Inc. I am first and foremost, you know, Onrie Kompan Productions. But you know, the collectibles business, that's sort of like my online presence, and it's more consistent. And that's how most people know me now, is for going online and selling comics. But the publishing stuff, that's when you meet me at a convention, that's what I'm known for. So I like to try and make it go hand in hand and grow both businesses. And I think that's something that we all have to kind of figure out how to do in this business, is to expand ourselves as much as possible. How much can we do with our skill sets? You know, how much can we diversify?
I think independent comics publishing is basically, it's a 2-job thing. You need, your one job is publishing the comics, writing the comics, creating the comics, whatever. And the other thing you have to do is figure out another engine that makes money, whether that's a day job, whether that's some side career, whether that's some related industry business, whatever it is. If you want to be a comic book maker, you need a 2-job focus.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky I fell into the collectibles. It took me a long time to get there.
Right.
And it's still a growing business for me.
And not only that too, Tom, is that your creator part of it is, a lot of people think of it as I'm making the comic. Well, that's the easy part. The easy part, making it. Then you got to go sell it, right? That's the hard part. The business part of it is the tough part.
I think that, to me, the easiest part of a comic book is writing it. And then the other stuff is actually harder because that's a learned skill.
Yeah.
Like I think of writing is to me is like a natural ability that I have that started out being terrible, and I just worked at it until I became sort of mediocre.
Yeah.
And then, but the real skill is being able to manage the artists and the letterers and the colorists and the printer and the distribution and the mail order and the conventions and picking out paper stock and figuring out what went wrong and solving problems that your creative team has. All that other stuff, those are hard battles to learn until you get it, until you nail it down.
That is, yeah, there's so much, and I've had so many issues over the years too with creative teams and things like that, like people not jiving, and
Yeah.
you know, every you're speaking to me with all that. We've all had those experiences. There's drama, or artist doesn't work out.
That's the other thing too, is that, and because Roland and I were talking about this on last week's show, is that when you get to a certain level of age and experience, you don't have to solve everything by yourself. There's somebody you met along the way that you could reach out to and say, look, I'm having this issue.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Help me. Yeah. What's your answer?
Yeah. Cause I'm not asking you for money. I'm asking, I need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I have to say that's the one thing that I really love is that there's always someone I can talk to. And lately I've been talking a lot to a creator named Fabrice Sapolsky, who's the publisher of Fair Square Graphics. Fabrice is also an artist as well, and you know, like he's been working in the business for over 30 years. So you know, sometimes when I come across a problem, I need some advice. He's somebody I go to. You know, sometimes I talk with Stefan as well. Stefan's also another person, and my producer on The Experience, Kyle Northrup. You know, that guy's got a lot of experience dealing with people, and he understands people's personalities very, very well. And I've had some situations that occurred at conventions, like poor engagements that I had with peers at conventions where I needed to kind of work through stuff. And he was very helpful on that, you know, and things like that will happen. I mean, it's just, honestly, this is the thing I like so much about what Tom told me was he broke it down for this. Just because you're working in comics doesn't mean it's not a job. This is a job.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like going into work. It's like going into the office. It's a fun job. It can be a fun job, but you know, it's still work. You're still going in, you're still showing up. And, you know, one other thing, you know, in a couple of weeks, Scott Snyder's new version of Batman's coming out.
Absolutely.
And everybody, absolute Batman, right? So everybody's been talking about the logo and crapping on the logo and saying, oh man, this logo, it sucks. Oh man, there have been people who are drawing like, you know, mock versions of the logo and everything, but they haven't read the book yet. They haven't read the book. They don't know why the logo's like that. And you know what? It's just a freaking stupid logo. Who cares? It's an established character. We know it's Batman. Just let the book come out. Let it breathe and then diss it. Then
let me tell you about the Spider-Man clone.
I had a very similar response, and I didn't read it, but I had a very similar response to the Captain America as a Nazi thing. My first thought was, it's just a story.
Yeah.
He's not going to always be a Nazi. He's going to go be a Nazi, and then something's going to happen, and he's going to not be a Nazi. And it's just a story. Stop getting so worked up about it. He's not going to become Captain Nazi. That's not what's happening. And again, I didn't read it, so I don't know. But
yeah, he was an agent of Hydra, and it was all explained.
It was a story, I'm sure.
Storyline, yeah, exactly. You know, and the problem is that people come in with these preconceived notions. So it's like, even when the whole point of bringing up Scott Snyder is like, even when you're at the top, these guys still have to deal with these things.
Oh yeah.
People are still going to come at them with things like, I just finished reading a run of Hulk books today. It was Donny Cates's run. And the last few issues of the series were written by the artist, Ryan Otley, who was the co-creator of Invincible.
Right.
And I remember when this book ended, Marvel said, or there were Bleeding Cool articles being posted that Donny Cates abruptly quits Marvel and stops working on Hulk. And so I started, after I finished this and I saw the send off by Ryan Otley, I was like, well, what happened? So I looked it up online. Turns out Donnie Cates was involved in a car accident.
Yeah.
Where he lost parts of his memory. The last 6 months of his life were just a blur.
Right.
That he's now just trying to catch up to everything. So life happens.
Yeah.
And that's it. And one thing I'll tell you is Ryan Otley did an amazing job of wrapping up that run. Did the best he could. Could it have been better if Donnie was there? Absolutely. But they got through it and they finished it. But when I initially saw that Bleeding Cool article, I thought that something really bad happened at Marvel, causing Donnie to leave.
Yeah.
Or that, this Hulk run was just so awful that, they dropped Donnie and that was it. And they just fired him out of they just launched him out of a cannon and said, you're fired. That's not what happened at all. The guy was.
Anger drives it.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I always think
the head off of bats too.
I always think the worst thing that happened to comics, and we can't get around it really, is that all of these things had to be previewed 3 to 4 months in advance before they go on sale. Like in the old days, comics would just show up.
Show up.
You bought it based on the cover or whatever. And now there's so much pre-publicity for what's going to happen in the comic that's coming up that you have a chance to hate it.
Yeah.
Before
I think we can thank Frank Miller for that, right? With Dark Knight Strikes Again. Wasn't that like one of the first books that they really did that with? Because I remember they were never. I remember hearing stories of it was so bad that they sent it back and told them that they weren't going to publish it or whatever. But like there were stories of that. But then the book actually came out, and I don't know. I've never read Dark Knight Strikes Again, but I mean, it's Frank Miller. You know what you're getting. I mean, it's just it's different.
You don't hire Frank and then be disappointed that Frank turned in Frank work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a direct market result of the direct market that we have. It's not the newsstand. They just used to show up, right?
They would show up. And I understand. Yeah. This isn't old man get off my grass stuff.
No,
because I understand you're not changing that. You're not going back to a simpler, a simpler time where we could all be surprised. It's just weird how that function has changed, where fans used to be excited about stuff, and now fans are always hating stuff.
Yeah. They hate it because they can see it in the catalog months before it's released.
Right. And
right?
they have
look, I hate this.
And also praise doesn't generate clicks.
No.
People forward stuff that makes them angry. They don't forward stuff they love.
That's true.
There.
Well, we've gone over the time that I told you that we would be that we would be on, so I apologize for that. But this has been a lot of fun. I didn't even get to bring up some of my questions I had about Marks and Moreline both. We'll get you on some other time.
Anytime, guys.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Cool.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and I wish the time flew with you guys. I had so much fun.
Good. I'll be looking forward to seeing you in New York.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it, Tom.
All right.
Sweet. So you'll be in New York. Where else can folks find you? Can they find you online?
If you friend me on Facebook, I'll friend you back. That's usually the best place to get in touch with me.
Okay.
And I also have my website, okcomicsonline.com.
Okay.
And I broadcast 3 times a week, so I'll be on the air tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing a 2-hour live stream. We'll be doing $2 back issues, and I got some other cool, fun bundles and other markdown keys and grails. So we'll be selling books 3 times next week. And
which I discovered before we went live is that you've actually got a lot of 80s independent stuff.
Yes, I do. Yes, yeah, I bought a collection from
my favorite stuff.
Yeah, I got a collection from a dude in 2020. And I just got boxes and boxes. So if you're ever looking for like old independent stuff from Malibu or Eagle Scout Comics.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And just a few of these smaller companies, I probably have them somewhere. So
awesome.
Yeah. So
Well,
I'll be out here and you can come hang out and say hi and talk comics with me. That's what I do every week.
Awesome.
All right, you guys do that. Hang out with Onrie and maybe buy some cool comics. This week, Tuesday doesn't have a show listed. They're gonna have a show, but they haven't listed the name of the show, and neither does Wednesday. So I'm gonna have to jump on those folks and tell them, hey, get your shows down. But next week, excuse me, Tom and I are gonna have a blast next week because next week's show is no such thing as writer's block. I don't believe it.
I don't
it
believe
is
it.
not a thing.
Nope.
So we're going to be here and we're going to discuss it. We're going to see if Tommy or Mike or Roberta, any of those disagree with us, but we're going to talk about that. Show up. If you believe there's such thing as writer's block, you got to show up here and you got to argue with us because Tom and I are both going to say,
it'll be a short show if we don't get some arguments. So
that's right. That's right. So all right, Onrie, I'll let you have the last word before we close off. Anything?
Auf Wiedersehen.
All right, if you want to hang out a few minutes after we end, we'll chat a little bit.
Sure.
All right, everybody, like we always do, make mine Silverline. Have a good night, everyone.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline.